Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're looking at a massive, literally seismic shift in American history. I mean, we're going to explore an era where the fundamental way people lived, the way they worked, and honestly how they saw their entire place in the world changed almost overnight. It's a story of absolutely incredible innovation, for sure, but also one that forces us to ask some really deep questions about what we actually value as a society. So I want you to really imagine this for a second. Imagine waking up in a world where everything has suddenly shifted. The quiet life you've always known, the one dictated by the rising and setting of the sun, the changing of the seasons, is just gone. And in its place, a world that moves relentlessly faster. It's dramatically louder and it's completely different. How would you adapt to that? What would happen to your community? Well, this isn't just some hypothetical thought experiment. This is exactly what happened to millions of Americans in the early 1800s. Section 1. From Farms to Factories, the Great American Shift. Let's set the stage a bit here. We're looking at the exact moment America transitioned from these sprawling family farms to a totally new industrial way of life. Before this big shift, most Americans lived out in rural areas, right? Their lives were defined by the predictable, quiet rhythms of manual farming. But then an alternative popped up, the new industrial city. And it promised something a farm just couldn't always guarantee, which was steady, predictable cash wages. So people began flocking to factories in search of that financial security, chasing the hum of fast production, and essentially trading the plow for the factory floor. Moving on to Section 2, how industry changed everything, the rise of machines. So how did we actually get from the farm to the factory? The answer is machinery. Let's walk through this incredible progression together. Step 1 was the old way, handmade goods, slow, meticulous, and pretty expensive. Then Step 2 really changed the game, water wheels. Suddenly, early textile mills could harness the rushing power of rivers to spin yarn and weave cloth. And then, Step 3, the ultimate game changer, steam engines. You no longer needed to be right next to a rushing river. You could build massive factories literally anywhere, all powered by the immense hissing pressure of steam. Now, these textile mills, factories specifically built for making cloth, they were some of the very first to use these new methods. By producing goods in massive quantities, they drastically cut costs. They sped up production to a level that was previously thought impossible. I mean, they were making everyday items cheaper and just so much more accessible for the average person. It was a real game changer. But you gotta wonder, who is actually running all these machines? Let me introduce you to the Lowell girls. In places like Lowell, Massachusetts, young women became the primary workforce driving this whole industrial boom. They bravely moved away from their rural family farms, stepping onto these loud, unfamiliar factory floors. And why? To earn independent wages. And they sent much of that money right back home to support their families. They were the true human engine behind this technological revolution.
That brings us to Section 3, the rise of cities, booming factory towns.
Okay, so you have the machines and you have the workers. What happens next? Just incredible urban growth. Factories became like magnets, drawing in immigrants and young people from the countryside. They transformed these quiet little towns into booming, smoky cities, like Lowell and Pittsburgh, almost overnight. Get this, between 1820 and 1860, America's urban population completely tripled, 3 times the size. Think about the speed of that. That is a massive demographic shift in just a few decades. The sheer volume of humanity packing up and moving to urban centers completely redefined the landscape of the nation. Now, you might be wondering why certain cities exploded in size while others kind of didn't. Well, they had what we can basically call geographic cheat codes. If your town was near a river, you had water power and a natural highway. If you were near a coal mine, you had abundant fuel for those new steam engines. And if you had railroads, you had the ultimate transportation network to ship your goods absolutely everywhere. Easy transport plus abundant energy, that was the winning combination for a booming metropolis. Next up, Section 4, progress and its problems, the cost of rapid growth. Now, we really have to pivot to the central conflict of this era, because while the city represented tremendous hope, a better future, and undeniable economic progress, it definitely came with some harsh realities. Let's weigh these out. On the opportunity side, you have exactly what everyone wanted, right? New jobs, steady wages, faster production, and cheaper goods for your family. But look at the challenges. You basically traded the farm for severe overcrowding. The air and water were choked with pollution, and those factory floors, they were often incredibly dangerous with unsafe conditions and relentlessly strict schedules governed by the factory clock, not the sun. The reality was that these cities simply grew way too fast. When your population triples, the infrastructure just breaks down. Housing couldn't be built fast enough, which led to families crammed into tiny spaces. Sanitation systems were virtually non-existent, and safety systems, both on the streets and in the factories, they simply couldn't keep up. This intense overcrowding and pollution, that's exactly why organized urban planning suddenly went from being a nice luxury to an absolute vital necessity for human survival.
Section 5. The morality of labor, a biblical perspective on work.
Let's slow down the pacing here for a moment and evaluate this historical shift through a moral framework. How should a society actually view its workers and the concept of honest labor? Well, this scripture from Colossians 3:23 provides a really profound lens. It says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters." It's a powerful reminder that all work, whether you're spinning yarn in a noisy mill or managing the entire factory, holds inherent dignity when it's done with faithfulness and integrity. So let's look at how this builds our understanding of the era's struggles. From a biblical morality perspective, economic progress and soaring profits should never, ever ignore the well-being of the workers who are actually generating that wealth. A healthy community must value honest labor. It has to proactively protect human dignity and seek fair conditions for all people, no matter how fast industry and profits are growing.
I want you to pause and truly reflect on this question for a second. How can society balance these two things? How do we celebrate an economic boom and honor the value of hard work while simultaneously protecting the very people doing the heavy lifting from unfair treatment and dangerous conditions? It was the defining question of the 1800s, and frankly, it's a question we are still wrestling with today. And finally, Section 6. Why Morality Matters, the HeroesMart Academy Philosophy. To conclude this explainer, we need to connect these historical realities to your own education and character. The HeroesMart Academy Godly Learners series intertwines biblical morality with education for a very specific reason. Education without morality will hurt. Think about those factory owners of the 1800s. A lot of them were brilliant, highly educated innovators. But if you lack a moral compass, what is the point of being smart? If you are highly educated but continue to make choices that hurt your workers, hurt your community, and hurt the environment, your intelligence just becomes a weapon rather than a tool for good. And this brings us to our final thought. Romans 8:6-7 promises peace of mind to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. True understanding isn't just about memorizing facts about water wheels and urbanization, right? It's about successfully uniting that factual knowledge with a deeply spiritual moral grounding. That is what brings true peace of mind, both to the individual and to society as a whole. So I'll leave you with this. As we continue to build our modern world with new technologies and new steam engines of our own, will we have the moral grounding to ensure our progress lifts people up rather than grinding them down?